Ric Flair is a former 16-time world champion in WWE. He is the only two-time Hall of Famer in the history of the company. And it seems that when it comes to retirement, Flair just can't seem to give up the only sport he has ever had a passion for. Flair has even managed to play his part in his daughter Charlotte's incredible career over the past few years, since he once worked as a manager and has always been on hand to help out the former Raw Women's Champion whenever he has been needed. Ric's name is synonymous with WWE and he will always be seen as one of the biggest legends in the company. But there are some instances where even Ric Flair stepped over the limit of what was socially deemed to be acceptable. So, the following list looks at just 10 of the times that the styling and profiling superstar was seen to have gone too far by the WWE universe and the reasons why this was seen as was unacceptable. Number 10. The 2K14 panel. Ric Flair likes to drink, so much so that he made it a part of his character to love to party, but it seems that this could be one of his downfall and actually managed to get him into a lot of trouble with WWE officials when he attended the panel for WWE 2K14 back in 2013 while he was drunk. Flair seemingly took over the panel and began to tell stories about wrestlers who weren't even there. He talked to Mick Foley about their match in TNA as well as ripping the likes of Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart because Hulk had too many back surgeries and Bret refused to take his chops. He then got really emotional about his son Ric Flair, who had only recently died at the time, and basically told Daniel Bryan that he didn't belong in the panel with the legends like Steve Austin and Jim Ross. Number 9. Taking his own son to a strip club. It's probably not the kind of activity that jumps into your mind when you kind of think of ways for fathers and sons to bond. But it seems that Rick decided that he and Reed should take a trip to a strip club and he even brought his son alcohol while he was there. At which point, it was questionable to whether or not he was old enough to drink at the time. Elizabeth brought this up as a part of their divorce proceedings, making it clear that Flair had problems when it came to his parenting skills. Add this to the regular fist fights that he had with Reed and the fact that he even managed to get into a punch-up with Ashley's boyfriend. And you have to kind of agree with Elizabeth that Rick's parenting skills are definitely on the verge of being what normal people would consider to be least questionable. Number 8. When he got Jim Ross fired. As already mentioned, Ric Flair turned up to the WWE 2K14 event drunk and managed to make the show much more interesting when he decided to talk about whatever he wanted and even mentioned TNA, which WWE officials would not have been happy about. Shockingly though, it wasn't Ric Flair who faced punishment for the events that unfolded on this day. It was Jim Ross. Because Ric Flair made comments about John Cena being a hardcore drinker and a number of other accusations throughout. The sponsors were not happy about the event and WWE then took it out on Jim Ross, who they thought, as the host, should have stepped in and managed to restrain Flair in some way. Number 7. No hair, no Flair. There are many stories about Ric Flair and his early career in WWE, where he would literally be the man seen on screen in real life. These stories also talk about the fact that Flair obviously had very little respect for women in those days, as well thought because he thought it was acceptable to approach waitresses who were complete strangers to him and lift up their skirts before proclaiming, "Just checking baby, you know what they say? No hair, no Flair. Woohoo!" Missy Hatt backed up many of these stories stating that Flair would expose himself to women for no reason and think it was okay to sexually harass them as well. There are also stories of a drunk Flair approaching women and shouting about how much he wanted them, which must have been a sight to see. It seems that Rick really did enjoy his early days as a star. Number 6. His real-life feuds. Over the course of his career, Ric Flair managed to have more real-life feuds than anyone else in the history of the company. It seems that he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way and went on lengthy rants about the likes of Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, Shane Douglas, Mike Foley, and Bret Hart in the years that followed. It seems that most of these problems were put behind him and he also managed to reconcile with some of his former rivals while he was still contracted to WWE. But one of the rivalries that stand out would be the one with Bret Hart, where he actually accused Bret of exploiting Owen Hart's death in his autobiography, which many of the WWE universe thought was a step too far. Number 5. Flair and his money problems. You would think that someone who had been part of the wrestling business for so long, such as Ric Flair, would have a lot of money saved up in the bank. It seems that the 4 divorces and many IRS problems that Ric had over the years have mounted up to the point where Flair has become well known for his debt. One of Flair's biggest problems could be the fact that he would spend so much money on clothes and more than $8,000 on his designer robes that he later became infamous for. Flair would have been able to retire from wrestling company a number of years ago if it wasn't for his mounting debts and tax bills. Number 4. Purposely holding back other wrestlers. The wrestling business is about politics. It seems that Flair knew this and he liked to always ensure that everything worked out on his favor. That's why many stars have commented on their hatred of Flair over the past few years, and the fact that he purposely did things in matches with them to ensure that they wouldn't be pushed above him. Scott Steiner was a star who hated Flair because he faced him in a one-on-one match, and many stars pointed out that Flair was purposely doing things in the ring like sandbagging him to make him look weak and to affect his singles push. Bret Hart even commented in his autobiography that Flair did the same thing to him in the first singles title run. Number 3. Does Ric Flair have another daughter? It is quite well known that Flair has 4 children, Megan and David from the first marriage to Leslie Goodman and Reed and Ashley from his second marriage to Elizabeth Harrell. But it seems that a woman called Deanne Sidden went on to claim that the daughter she gave birth to in 1992 was also Ric Flair's. Sidden apparently began stalking Flair in 1990 and would follow him from city to city, trying to contact him, and even alleged that the duo had an affair. Flair was later granted a restraining order against her. Sidden has always claimed that her daughter, that she called Tiffany, was Ric's, and this claim has never been proven to be false. Number 2. Ric Flair and Ring of Honor. Ric Flair retired from WWE following his impressive WrestleMania bout with Shawn Michaels. There was a touching tribute to Ric on the episode of Raw that followed. It was thought that he would finally be allowed to enjoy his retirement. Flair obviously had a passion for the business that he couldn't just walk away, and so instead he decided to move over to TNA and Ring of Honor. While Flair was with Ring of Honor, he apparently caused a lot of troubles. Flair was seen as an ambassador of Ring of Honor, and he not only failed to show for a number of appearances, but at one point even walked out of a show partway through. Number 1. Road Rage. Ric Flair has been reported to have a number of incidents outside of the WWE ring, where he seems to think it is acceptable to get into fights with civilians. One of these events was back in December 2005 when Flair was alleged to have gotten out of his car, grabbed a motorist by the neck and then kicked the door off his vehicle. This scene was later parodied on WWE TV by former WWE champion Edge while the duo was enrolled in a feud, but Flair himself was charged for the incident. He was charged with assault and battery as well as injury to personal property. So, do you guys agree with our list? If yes, then surely press the like button and leave us a comment down below. Subscribe to XtremeJaw to enjoy brand new videos every day. See you in the next one. Till then, bye bye.